the original work of the autobiographical novel 10 Years of Marriage by Su Qing, a female writer in the Republic of Shanghai. Leaves of the plane tree have all yellowed and fallen. Live in my uncle's house. Depressedlyism, just bortle efforts are in vain. All hope is in vain. What will I do? My aunt still smiled and talked with me. Her eyes shine like swords, floating powder on face like thick frost makes me shudder just looking at it. I had no choice but to lower my head and pick up the little fleece sweater for Yuan. The little sweater is connected. I personally sent them to their residence on ADV Forest Road. My aunt's face is more fierce than before. It is said that Sean is not at home day and night. The family situation is very depressed. The children's faces are yellow as haggard as an autumn sycamore leaf. He went there in a hurry and came back. Can't bear to see any more. I just want to have a room to rent by Miss Few can keep me safe inside and sob until dawn in the morning. My aunt handed me a letter. Her soft envelope is a foot long, printed with the name of the agency. Next to it, write the words Jin Jian with an ink pen. I couldn't help but wonder. My aunt's eyes stared at me sharply. Couldn't help but feel panic. I just say something. It was probably written by an unrelated friend. Then he continued to explain. He always borrows envelopes from the agency. My aunt smiled suspiciously. Just Lefty held this letter for a long time without daring to open it. Aunt's voice said downstairs. She smile is so sharp and sharp. Straight into my heart. My blood is also clotetty. Had no choice but to tear open the envelope with trembling eyes. Pull out a thin piece of letter paper and look at it. Name above is Mr. So signed at the bottom. Jin Shiking. This is probably a personal letter from Prime Minister Kim. The content is very simply said he would treat me to dinner at 6 p.m. tomorrow. The location is in a certain plaza. That's it. I was really confused after watching it. Wait, did he treat me to dinner? Who else was invited? Will Zhu Guanglai go? Where are Qi Zhong and his wife, Lu Sichen, Pan Zimai, etc.? I just worked as a newspaper editorium, afraid Prime Minister Kim won't invite them. Suppose there is no acquaintance at the table. Suppose the guests who arrive are all rich people and ladies. What will I do? I thought about it all day and night. I don't know if I should go to the party. Still can't refuse. If you don't want to go, I have to write to Prime Minister Kim. But it's too late to mail it. If you say send someone, is there anyone here whom I can send to you? Finally, I thought of going to Zhu Guanglai to discuss it. Ask him what happened when he goes. I will go with him. If Nodi asked him to try to inform Prime Minister Kim I'm not going either. Unexpectedly, I arrived at the newspaper office. Said Zhu Guanglai went out to socialize. I had no choice but to come back in the road. He also thought that Zhu Guanglai and I had only met each other a few times. Last time, he took me to Kim Mansion as a courtesy. This time I have to bother him again to accompany him to Prime Minister Kim's banquet. Won't it make him feel troublesome? Moreover, he is a man without a wife. I often pester him to accompany him in and out. Don't let others misunderstand and make fun of you. Better not go. Poor people socialize with rich people. Wasn't worthy. Don't have good clothes, shoes or other things. But I think of my aunt's frosty face again with the children's faces like yellow lavazzi. Thought again of Prime Minister Kim's great power. Suppose I refuse his invitation for no reason. Aren't you afraid that he will become angry? I have to deal with him. Maybe I can still use him. So I went to the barber shop to get my hair done. Going home, I'm afraid my aunt will see Marin up the stairs in a hurry. Closed the door to the pavilion tightly. I stood in front of the mirror and looked carefully and felt that the style was a bit dull. Then I sorted it out myself. At this time, my uncle and aunt knocked on the door. He said he was going out to socialize. Take me with you. Of course, there are things that haven't changed in my resignation. They don't force it. I go straight downstairs in pairs after going. Then I can change my clothes safely because this is a solemn and grand banquet. Specially chose one made of western material, thin black woolen. King Sam, a large white peony flower is embroidered on the left lapel of the narrow long sleeves. I know ladies like to dress upal over satin head full of jadeite gems, so I'm willing to wear black. Appear solemn. It also means being different. But where's my coat? The weather is already cold. I don't have a sable gray back and even afford a hanging poti. Only have one gray sheepskin coat. How shabby. Think of this. Seems sad and don't want to go linger for a moment. Look at the clock and it's 5:15. If you want to leave, you have to be on time. It doesn't matter whether it's luxurious or not. I am a poor scholar. Just put on a woolen coat. It's not like I'm going to participate in some fashion competition. I went out and called for a tricycle. He drove to the address stated in the letter. Soon we arrived before the great towering walk in the door. I saw countless cars lined up on both sides. I think there are already a lot of guests here. I can't help but feel timid in my heart. Before divorce, I'm used to living in seclusion. Now to make a living running around. In the end, nothing was accomplished. It makes me sad to think about it, but already Hire had no choice but to go up boldly. Reached the mentioned level, it was actually full of armed guards. They asked who I was looking for. He replied scornfully that Prime Minister Kim invited me to come. They asked you again who you are. I handed them my business card and looked at it. They asked me to wait a moment, probably going in to report soon. Someone who looks like an adjutant will be unable to fly out. I asked if this is Miss Su. I nodded and said yes. Finished saluting me respectfully, speaking in Mandarin. He said, Miss Su, Prime Minister, please. I followed him into the splendid living room. Though my surprise, seat was so quiet inside that no one was there. I suddenly felt uneasy. Did you arrive too early? The clock on the wall clearly points to 6 o'clock. This is a gorgeous but not huge living room. There are sofas on both sides of the center. Machine am strong and calm. Just pick up a sofa in the corner, sit down, and the adjutant asks me to sit down. Then he quit. After a while, the errand boy brought tea. I motioned with my hand to tell him to put it on the plane. He put the teacup straight. Then she respectfully whispered to me, Miss Su, please sit down for a moment. The Prime Minister is coming out soon. I stayed silent and said nothing. The errand boy went out, closed the door, gently lowered my head and pondered and waited until Prime Minister Kim came out. Should I stand up? What to call him? I don't want to call him Prime Minister Kim. I'm not his subordinate. I'll just call him Mr. Jin. Is this etiquette? Alas, I regret that I should not have pestered Ziguang to come with me. You can ask him for anything. He is so affable. No, I'm here alone. If there is a poem, don't you want to make people laugh? The more I think about it, the more I regret it. Feeling more panic. Suddenly the door opened again. I'm about to stand up, but the person who came in was still the adjutant. He bowed and said to me, Miss Su, Prime Minister is coming. Zuri, please sit down for a while. I have nothing to say. Wanted to just feel my fingers are getting cold. My mind is so fuzzy that I feel like I'm deep in a maze. Why should I come here? Yes, I met Prime Minister Kim twice, but never talked way. Are always strangers. She's not afraid to come in abruptly. It was already presumptuous for Han to ask me out. Why should I accommodate him like this? His wealth has nothing to do with me. Power should not be abused on innocent people. What do I want from him? Why should you be afraid of him? I'm afraid this letter wasn't written by him at all. Or is someone joking? Or maybe things were completely misunderstood. It's okay without a name. I smiled bitterly and said, I'm afraid I'm not capable enough for this. I am a freedom-loving person, not used to being restrained. I just want a room of my own, can write with peace of mind, free to enter and exit. Was silent for a moment and said, you can have another drink. Troublesome things, please don't think about him now. I stood up and said, can't drink anymore. I'm going back. Thank you, Mr. Jin. So Prime Minister Kim asked his adjutant to escort me downstairs. Doorway. There is already a streamlined car waiting for you. The adjutant opened the door for me. Stepped in quickly and back on the soft seat until you fall asleep. The lights at midnight also seem sparse. There are few people on the road. Car moving forward. Even if I go back alone and deserted, it's like a dream. In the peep Musisi can barely remember who I was drinking with just now. Said something. I'll meet him later. Ho to step down. It's so embarrassing to stay here all the time. Yes, if he came to ask for something, it's better to go home quickly. Just thinking about it. Suddenly I saw the 2 doors to the living room were open. 4 guards stood majestically. Prime Minister Kim wears a dark gray suit. Stepped through the door with big strides. His hair is thick and shiny, nose high, sharp eye. She saw me timidly hiding in the corner. He smiled and said, please come over here and sit down. Tired of waiting for a long time, I won't answer either. Just walked here silently. Sit down on the colorful couch as directed by him. He sits next to me. Keep a considerable distance between the two. There is a low tea machine in front of the sofa. The errand boy brought me 2 cups of tea. Please take off my coat. There is a water hole in the living room, piping hot. I put my coat on the back of the sofa. The errand boy carefully carried him out. Closed the door smoothly. My head dropped to my chest, feeling more panic. It's as if Prime Minister Kim's voice is speaking in the distance. Ears can hear, can't answer. He asked me if I smoke. Katie shook my head. After a long while, he asked again if he writes a lot lately. I nodded. He smoked quietly. On fire after another is burningus. If thinking about Somathinji, dare not say anything. Look straight down first. The black cheong sam with white peony flowers on the chest. Hem. Light red stockings, black leather high heels. Look further, it's the plush carpet that I'm walking on. His beautiful patterns, luxuriant and bright, as if covered with colorful fallen flowers. Looks like spring all over the world. The water hall is so warm. I feel grog. Prime Minister Kim rings the bell. Call the errand boy and ask if the food and wine are ready. The errand's reply, Wash said he would arrange it inside. The errand mission has been arranged. He waved his hand and told the errand boy to go out. As he said to me, "Please come inside and have a meal." I stood up in surprise. Are you thinking that all the other customers are waiting inside? But I didn't dare to ask more questions. Just stand up, follow him carefully into the dining room. The dining room is a square room. The area is smaller than the living room. There are large purple velvet curtains in the window near the road. Heavily covered, it's a juvenile fish. There is one exquisitely carved cupboard with glass door. There are all kinds of expensive foreign wines. Inside, lighting appears harmonious and gently. The dining table is covered with a white tablecloth. Tableware is very particular. Opacity. There are 2 pairs of cups and chopsticks placed neatly. Only 2 pairs. He couldn't help but ask if there were any other guests. Prime Minister Kim smiles, asked me to sit down opposite him. Then he calmly replied that there were no other guests. "I'll talk to you." The waiter began to bring the dishes. Prime Minister Kim asked me if I could drink. I'm sorry to say no. He no longer persuades, just swallow it 1 cup at a time. His skin is fair, good facial feature. Althahov, he is almost 50 years old, but some of them don't look old. More than 20 years ago, should be a handsome boy, right? Obsessed with revolution, naturally fall in love. However, he soon abandoned his spiritual life. He has no soulless environment, can no longer allow him to have a soul. What can I tell him? The popularity of the water hall continues to increase. A soft light-splitted room, food and drinks are constantly being surveyed. He asked me with a pleasant look which school I was from. Have you written a lot of articles? He also said that he once worked in the Jiang newspaper. Have seen some of my works. Delicate writing style, profound description, was very Tasheti. Am also a literati. He said that he was now unfortunately engaged in political work. Personality differences are very distressing. Then he asked me about my family situation. Are your parents still alive? How many brothers and sisters are there? I answered them all. He raised his glass and drank it in 1 gulp. After a while, he suddenly asked, since you really heard Mrs. Qi and Mr. Ziguanglai talk about it, you are not happy with your marriage, right? It hurts when I touch it. I couldn't help, but sadly replied that I was divorced. He seems to sympathize with me again about my union with my former husband. Is it free love? Or is it because of parents' orders? Sean and I were classmates. In fact, our marriage cannot be said to be perfect. But I pondered for a long time. In the end, he said it was his parents' orders. He advised me to drink Aglini. Don't dare to refuse. Anna Marie just had to take a sip. He told me a lot about his history. Childhood, loss of curiosity, hard and joined the rebellion. Disability Shintonbimton. He loves his Ladera revolutionary senior who promoted him is like a father and brother, as close as a teacher, as close as flesh and blood. He must always follow. He knew it couldn't be done, but did I am willing to sacrifice for my friend, she said painfully. Also feel miserable and unhappy when I hear it. I saw him drinking as much as he could. It's hard to dissuade. These are the only words that come to Minju. Made the book maniac drunk, singing over wine. Strong music is tasteless. The belt becomes wider and I will never regret. I think of Thesi, just feels sad, can't help but pick up the cup. Took a big sife, sees me and is willing to drink, seems to like it too. Then he filled another cup from mine. Know that the person sitting across from me at this moment is Prime Minister Kim, the first rich man at that team. I might use him. However, I don't. He is so generous, and since Ru gradually started tell. Kinji briefly mentioned the recent bitter mine live under someone else's roof, not convenient everywhere. He asked me what I was going to do in the future. I said I want to find a career. Stared at me for a long time and sighed. Well, he don't really approve of women doing things out there, especially doing political work. The reason is simple, because this society is so mean and nasty. An innocent woman, there is no need to be complicit in the crime. I said women also need to eat. What can be done about this? He nodded. After listening, it is said that divorce is really unfortunate for women. The night is deepy. Think of the sorrow of my life experience. Lost husband, lost children, career. No money again. Relatives are always unreliable. And ends and winter Kameshapi New Year Eve. This continue show, will it end? No chatting with Prime Minister Kim at the banquet was a feast of entertainment. A prosperous scene. Wait until the party is over. Go back Alonia. It's still miserable. The empty meaning of Howman is like the sea. Think of Thesi, couldn't help but pick up the cup, drink it all in 1 gulp, feeling dizzy, teetering on the verge of collapse. Prime Minister Kim filled another glass for me. Affectionate kiss. I know you are in pain too. If you need a career, just be my personal secretary, okay? Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.